Welcome to How Women Inspire. Our guest today has spent 25 years in tech, design, and systems thinking. Entrepreneurship and community building are at the center, and she's recently stepped into the venture capital space. And there's some interesting reasons why, and you're going to love getting to know her. She is absolutely obsessed, her word, not mine, with how things are made and pioneer mass customization, personalization, and on-demand micro-manufacturing for Procter & Gamble in 1999. She's a Techstars alum, founded and built the New York Fashion Tech Lab, serves on the board of 3 other accelerators, and has been featured in numerous publications along with 2 books. She's been the recipient of many awards, including a couple of ones. Top Women in Supply Chain in 2022 by one of the industry's largest publications. Really important. Welcome, Lisa Morales-Hellebo. It is such an honor to have you here.
It's crazy to hear like what I've been up to coming out of somebody else's mouth. So I'm exhausted.
Well, yeah, it's a lot. And you're so value-based. And I can't wait for people to dive in and really hear how you architected your life. I mean, not a lot of people think about the intersection of technology and fashion, but it's a real thing. And you're the pioneer in this space. But first, can we just have fun? What is that song that you listen to when days are tough or when times are great and you need to celebrate? What's your go-to?
Oh my God. My Latina sister, Christina Aguilera, fighter. I'm a Puerto Rican from the Bronx, so we all got a little fight in us. And when someone tells me that something can't be done, it just makes me want to do it even more.
All right. All right, good. Well, maybe today we'll come out with a couple of things that'll get you all fired up so you can solve the problems that are important to me as well while you're at it. So when you think about how you've dedicated your life, and I guess you can call it in supply chain or refashioning supply chain. What does that even mean? People who are buying clothes at Kohl's need to know, what is the supply chain?
Yeah, so let's break it down to what is supply chains to start. So supply chain has historically been thought of as more just logistics, moving products and goods from point A to point B. And how do you do that? Ocean freight, air freight, trucks, etc. And last mile has been all the rage, but that's just the movement of goods. Right now, we're at this interesting moment in time where supply chains are being digitized for the first time in history, which means that every physical thing can now talk to every other physical thing, which is the single largest operating system to ever exist on this planet. And simultaneously, when you look at supply chains, they're the foundation for the $100 trillion of GDP that the entire world runs on. So if you're trying to solve for the climate crisis, you cannot do it without addressing the opposite side of its coin, which is supply chain. And that is my life's work. To refashion them means to not just have incremental changes. We're out of time for that. I'm sitting here in my home office in New York looking out on an orange sky because of the wildfires in Canada coming down to New York. And it looks apocalyptic. And this is not a drill, folks. This is happening. We're in the thick of it. And the only thing that we should put all of our time, energy, and resources into is paradigm shifts that are going to entirely refashion the systems for the outcomes that we need to achieve to continue to exist on planet Earth.
So there's a crisis today. Many years ago, everyone was like, oh, that's going to be way down the road, but we're in it, right? We've hit the wall in many, many ways. What is the future then? If you say refashioning, what does that look like? What is the future of supply chain?
It requires design and systems thinking to really model for the outcomes that you're looking to achieve. And so the constraints I applied to the fashion supply chain in my year of R&D were overproduction, We cannot continue to produce the amount of fast fashion and products that are infinite optionality and need for newness and nowness in first world countries is
Dangerous.
consumed with. It's insane. Shein, a brand that popped up, really in 3 years has achieved decacorn status, and it's entirely through fast fashion. They produce about 1 million unique designs a year
Wow.
compared to the average fashion brand, which is maybe 5,000.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's unsustainable. Overproduction is one that you need to tackle. Then it's consumer behavior and the fact that we don't have enough time to change human behavior. They're addicted to fast fashion. So either we need to address it through legislation or disruption. And I'm a disruptor, so I put my money on disruption, moving faster than legislation, forcing companies to do the right thing. And we need to go all in on the disruptions that will achieve full circularity. So for fashion, what I arrived at was what I had been doing 22 years prior in Silicon Valley for Procter & Gamble was on-demand micro manufacturing. So your unit of one is the output from your factories, your volume shifts from that unit of one production to now your raw materials. And your raw materials become our locally sourced textile waste that we're drowning in. The US produces 4 times the textile waste of any other country. We used to ship it overseas. No other country wants it anymore.
I know. I've got a Rwandan daughter, and in Rwanda, they actually said we will no longer allow it in the country. So,
and what people don't realize, I'm always floored when I share these data points with people. What they don't realize is, fashion, it's the only industry besides food that every human has to interact with every day. You don't need finance, you don't need automotive, you don't need a lot of things. You need food and clothing. Shelter, yes, that would be nice, but a lot of people are living without it. So food and clothing, it touches 1 in 6 workers on this planet works in some piece of the apparel supply chain. It goes all the way back to agriculture. And like I said, your raw materials, if you're taking post-consumer waste, then you don't have to grow anything. We're literally sitting on generations worth of fibers here in the US that we could reprocess and regenerate over and over again and not have to grow another fiber. So if you're looking at the systems, okay, you're going all the way back to cotton farmers and hemp and bamboo. If they're not farming that, what should they be farming? Things that humans consume with nutrient-rich soil. These are the types of systems that you need to be able to correlate and map in your mind to be able to define what the future ready supply chain should look like.
So are we making progress, or is this something that is like early days and you still have to convince people they should care about it?
Disruptors don't wait for people to care about it. You find your people and lean into them. And so I learned the hard way through the New York Fashion Tech Lab that there's no amount of convincing of the existing brands that they should care about the planet and the people that work in their value chains. Just comes down to dollars and cents with them. And, this is how we've always done it. If you can make it incrementally better, that's good enough for us. Well, disruption doesn't wait for you. Netflix didn't ask Blockbuster, are you on board with us doing this all digital? No. So we're just going to continue building and make the old model obsolete. I think that's going to be the fastest path, and it is happening.
Who are the good players? The ones like, instead of buying clothes from Shein, where should we be looking at it if we need to buy anything at all, which most of us don't? Like, my closet's full enough. I probably, in the rest of my lifetime, I don't need anything.
Yeah. Well, I would say start with resale, luxury resale, or thrifting. The best thing that you could buy is something that already has existed. So short of that, right now, value chains are still incremental. I can't give any single brand a top rating because our globalized value chains have billions of nodes. It's insanity to think that we're going to retrofit the billion noded beast that is the textile and apparel supply chain, especially because globalization, the status quo is opacity. That's a perk. It's a feature, not a bug of the global model. And so if you're saying, you need to make it transparent and fully compliant, and they don't want to do that. They want just enough to be able to check a box and come for me. And that's been happening for 30 something years. And
It's the branding and the marketing that we all know you should be suspect of and sort of scratch under the surface. Okay, I think every little girl had a moment when they were like, "Oh, I want to design clothes," and we would draw, right? And then, but you got a design degree from Carnegie Mellon. But how did you actually get to the point one where you're so passionate about the stuff that's not the sexy design stuff? It sounds like more the design of the systems. And then also, what is the role venture capital has to play? You're working, you're running venture investments now. What is that going to do for us?
Yeah, it's crazy to me to think that this kid that just wanted to do something creative that made money and didn't know what design was really. I just knew it was making money and not being a starving artist or fashion designer. And so ultimately, what I believe is that being a VC is one of the most creative things you can do, because you literally are the decider of what companies get to exist in this world.
What cultures they have, who runs them, right?
And what happened was going through Techstars and building my own companies and pitching VCs and just building accelerators and having worked in Silicon Valley Tech, Puerto Rico Tech, New York Tech, Boston Tech, DC Tech. Like, I've seen it all. What I didn't see was people that looked like me on the other side of the table, or people that cared about the things that I cared about. And it's just insanity to think that we're going to solve the massive problems that exist in today's world by giving capital to the same funds that contributed to the problems.
The problem in the first place. Exactly.
Yeah. So we need diversity to be more than just a checkbox. It's the lens that you've experienced the world through and what matters to you. And I am just freakishly obsessive enough with fashion and how things are made and design and systems that this is the thing that I'm single-mindedly focused on it. And it's the unique set of skills that I can bring to this world that nobody else, I think, really has been obsessive about.
You've heard me say it before. My goal is for you to run the world. And let me tell you why. It's not just because I think you're fabulous, badass, and you know that I do. It is actually protective for all of us. When you have diversity on a board, for example, product recalls happen 3 times faster. Companies perform better. It's better for people, it's better for profits, and it's better for the planet. We need you to join a corporate board, and we need you to know when to advocate for it in your day job. October 16th through the 20th, How Women Lead is hosting our extremely successful 4th annual Get On Board Week. This week is full of virtual programming, content rich, but also connecting. And we know 85% of all board searches, they're word of mouth and through connections. We want to connect you with private equity firms that are seeking board members. We want to connect you with other women board members who've already done it, who are being tagged and can't take all the board seats that are coming their way. We will have board opportunities that we will share with you. And really, truly, this is our way to connect and propel you. This is 1 week. But what happens is people connect with people on LinkedIn, or they create mastermind groups that they support each other all year long. I want you to step up and be part of the solution. My daughter needs you on the board. But I also want to inspire you to think about all the women around you where you can be the person who inspires her and says, I see you on a board. I think you should be on a board. Check it out. Come and explore. Invite 10 friends. Tell them that you believe in them. It's the greatest gift you can give. Somebody did it for you, and I want to encourage you to do it for another woman. I look forward to seeing you at Get On Board Week so we can get thousands of women on boards. This year, our focus beyond the private boards that we've always focused on, we're adding the private board space. It's time. Thanks for your partnership. Send the letter back down and help another woman get into action. Yeah, I love that you unabashedly use the word obsessed about, because the truth is, as a venture capitalist myself, people who are gritty and obsessive really end up being the ones who solve the biggest problems. And so I cannot wait you've already done so much. I can't wait to see you frankly solve this problem. Let me know how I can get behind you. And So I already heard thrifting or going to, the secondhand high fashion. What are the other things that people listening to this can do? We've got about 6,000 people, 7,000
Look
people
at
listening.
your labels. Oh
Okay.
my goodness, look at your labels. Do not purchase anything that has poly or poly blends
Okay.
or anything that is not natural fibers. I'll scare you with some more stats. So every human being on this planet now consumes about a credit card's worth of microplastics every week.
Wow.
We've even found microplastics in our arteries and in the umbilical cords in the womb.
Oh my God.
That
And is
is
clothing
because
one of the
our
biggest
clothing,
reasons? Uh-huh. Oh my God.
yes, our clothing is made of plastic. It's poly. And when you have fibers, every time you brush against something that's poly, it sheds microplastics. You're walking on carpets, microplastics. You're sitting in your car, microplastics. Your daily clothing, microplastics. So the more you can eliminate microplastics and poly from your environment, the healthier you'll be. I mean, if we can't get rid of cholesterol in our arteries, how the hell are we going to get rid of microplastics from our
That is
arteries?
so scary for all of us. All right, so I am about to go look through my closet, and a little bit torn between, like, making sure that somebody else should wear it. But if you were to, like, talk to the beautiful little Lisa who's 11 and who is imagining designing clothes for people, maybe, what would your advice be to herself?
I would say you are enough. Own your shit. Sorry, pardon my French, little
Ah,
Lisa.
beautiful.
And find your people. So many women are put into these scenarios where we're exploited and extracted from. Other people see our brilliance and our capabilities, and they want to leverage them for their own
Yes,
gains
of course.
and
Yeah.
keep us in our place. Wait your
Mhm.
turn,
Yes.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't ever let anyone tell you,
Oh,
define your own boundaries. And when you find your people, the way you can identify them is that little gut feeling. If you meet someone for the first time and you get your lizard brain goes ick, they're
mm,
not your people.
yes. Yeah.
And it can be for any
Oh,
reason. It could be they're talking down to you, they're inappropriately touching you, or whatever. There's always something that will show you without even needing words how this person perceives you and if they want to be extractive and exploitative, or if they want to lean in and amplify you. And the people that will lean in and instantly make you feel energized, they see you and they will amplify you, and your success is in their hands.
you said a couple times, find your people. I hear the visceral response, who's not your person. But how did you go about finding your people? And do you refresh that group of people on a regular basis? Like, how does that work in your real practice?
Yeah, it took me way too freaking long to find my people, frankly. As a Puerto Rican from the Bronx, I grew up with a lot of racism, and on a daily basis, I didn't realize I had PTSD until after having gone through Techstars at age 36, 37, and from the daily abuse I had lived with through my childhood. And so for me, finding my people had an extra layer of like, well, are other people that are Puerto Rican my
Yeah.
people? Is it other people like the Black community? I've never fit in anywhere. I'm not Puerto Rican enough because I'm not fluent in Spanish. I'm not Black enough, even though I'm Afro Latina. I'm, even going back to Puerto Rico, local Puerto Ricans will call me a New Yorican because I'm not Puerto Rican enough or whatever. So being comfortable with not fitting in anywhere, I think has allowed me to really understand when I found my people. Like when I got to Techstars for the first time, that was the first time I was in a room of other people that were freaks like me. And they all,
So the entrepreneurs are your people, it sounds like.
entrepreneurs are my people that really don't believe in obstacles. There's always a way. It just means you haven't asked the right questions or found the right people to help you achieve what you're trying to do,
So it's not
or you've
identity.
given up.
It's not, yeah, it's not identity. And I guess in some ways it's sort of culture, but not. It's not culture, family of origin culture, but it's much more culture of like, how do you approach the world? Who do you want around you? How do you think about taking risks or lifting it up? I think your people evolves over your lifetime, right? Like you need very different stuff in adolescence between like 45 and 65 than you do earlier in your life, right? You actually really need other women. Are you finding that you can find women? Because I know when I look at the Techstars groups, often it's a lot of men who can be great too.
Yeah.
But sort of who is in that group, and what's the next iteration for you of who you need to be your champion and your support?
I will say that I, for whatever reason, have more men in my network
A
as
lot
my
of women do.
champions.
Yeah, no, especially in what you're trying to do in the world.
Yeah.
Um,
I've been told a lot that I act like a man. So for whatever that's worth. Well,
I
okay.
love it.
So
I love it. Hopefully that means it's because you're bold and innovative.
I think finding your people absolutely is about, it's not about necessarily gender or color of skin. It's about your tribe.
Yeah.
And building your tribe does evolve over time, but I am lucky enough to have a handful of amazing, brilliant women that are my tribe.
Yeah. It's so extremely important. And I think there's more and more research that's coming out about how it really sets what's possible in your life, who you spend time with. So I guess maybe let's pivot because you're so brilliant. I feel like I want to just be in your head, but maybe if you can tell me what you're listening to and what you're reading, that could help me and some of the audience members to kind of feel like we're a little bit of Lisa.
Oh my God. Yeah. I have a ton of audibles going simultaneously. So it depends on where I'm driving to or what I'm doing. But right now I'm listening to Winners Take All, the elite charade of changing the world. Amazing book. Oh my God. Such an eye opener about how the systems are designed for the outcomes they're currently achieving. And all those types of things. I listen to podcasts a lot, usually while I'm driving back and forth to the city. I've recently been going deep onto Founders podcast. It's a podcast where he reads all these autobiographies of amazing founders and then gives you a summary crash course of what he found most exciting in the books. And oh my God, Coco Chanel, Bernard Arnault from LVMH, Steve Jobs, Dyson, the vacuum cleaner guy.
Yeah.
Like it's
That
so
was so innovative
amazing.
when it came out, right? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it took him, he had the first Dyson design in the late 70s.
Wow.
And it
everyone
took
probably
him
told him he was
until,
crazy. Yeah. Everyone probably said that's
exactly,
ridiculous.
he
It's not how
nearly
it's
went
done. Who's going
broke.
to spend that much money? Mhm.
If you're going to create a new type of vacuum, why didn't Hoover come up with it? And who are
Yeah.
you? You're just a designer. How could you run a business and all the things? And it gives me hope and sanity to know that every overnight success is decades in the making.
Right. And be careful who you listen to. So often what I say is like, listen, if someone's never done what I'm doing, I'm going to take anything they say with a grain of salt, especially if you've never run something or if you've never innovated and built something. It's fine that you're the CMO of a corporation, right? That's a whole different set of skills and it's not transferable. It's not the same thing.
Or if you've done the same thing, but you're not a woman. My experience is going to be entirely different than yours, sir. Thanks for the input.
Take it or leave it. What you paid for it, right? Oh my God, I feel like I want to spend so much more time with you. We're almost at time. If you were going to leave people listening with a piece of advice or wisdom, what would that be? What message would you like to share with all the women?
Know your worth and realize that don't do it in a cocky way. That's never is appealing to anyone. But when you're earlier on in your career, my approach was always to try to make my boss look like a genius because then I would be invaluable. And so if you're always trying to make other people around you superstars, then you're going to be able to do that with teams. And you can start to figure out what drives the EQ side of people to get the outcomes that you're looking to achieve. I think EQ is the new IQ because AI and commoditized WYSIWYG no-code development platforms, EQ is the missing link in business, especially in supply chain, to be able to get people to work together. because there's no amount of venture capital, buckets of cash, and broy developers that can come in and force people to work together. And that's what I love about supply chain. You have to have great EQ to drive collaboration.
Well, and certainly my experiences in the pandemic when supply chains were so constricted, if you didn't have a good relationship with people, you were not going to be the first in line to get your stuff. So relationships are so critical and everything. Speaking of, how can people build a relationship with you? How can they find you? How can they support you? How can they get funding from you if they're in supply chain? How do we find the,
Yeah. So if you
internet?
Google me, Lisa Morales-Hellebo, there's tons of content out there, tons of videos of my speaking engagements. One that I'm super proud of was Business of Fashion Voices at the end of last year. Gave I think it was 12, 14-minute talk about localization of textile and apparel value chains and circular infrastructure. You can check out refashioned.com, and that is the word refashion with the letter D.com. So no ED at the end. And then I'm at Twitter on Lisa Hellebo, on my Instagram, Lisa Hellebo, and yeah, LinkedIn. I'm out there. You can find me.
All right, everyone. Build your tribe of your people. Find the people who give you the sense of anything possible, who open your mind and live your values. I mean, to be obsessively, fiercely committed to something like you are, Lisa, it's such a gift for people to see it in action. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for giving us a glimpse into your brilliance and your perspective. I feel like we all got to learn from you today.
Thank you so much for having me.